Welcome to the Fighting on Film podcast, the podcast all about classic and obscure war movies, from the Normandy landings to the days of chivalry and swords. If it's been captured on film, we're going to try and cover it. I'm Robbie of RM Military History.
I'm Matthew Moss of Historical Firearms and the Armourer's Bench.
Welcome back to Fighting on Film. Now, last week saw Clint Eastwood's 92nd birthday, and it would seem the podcast never lines up with that 31st date, or it hasn't so far. So we thought, to pay belated respects to the Hollywood legend, this week we would cover Heartbreak Ridge from 1986.
And it's the only film about Grenada.
Yeah, as well. That's really interesting. Like, there's hardly anything on that. There's a few documentaries that were made immediately after.
Yeah.
But there's so little.
There's been a couple recently as well. But no dramatic representations on screen.
This might be the only war film depiction of that war to date. To give you like a sentence worth of plot, Gunnery Sergeant Tom Highway is transferred to his old unit and is tasked with moulding his unruly recruits into a fighting unit before they are sent to rescue US nationals during the American Invasion of Grenada in 1983.
It's one of those strange little conflicts which are almost forgotten, I suppose.
It's like 4 days long.
Yeah, and in the film it's depicted as Cuban regulars. Interestingly, it doesn't depict any Grenadian forces
Not at all, no.
being engaged by the Marines. But we'll get back to that because the last 20 minutes of the film that depicts the actual operations is quite interesting.
Yeah, it's not awful, but it's not great either. So before we move on, you can rent this movie in the UK through Amazon Prime, because that's what we did to watch it.
I think YouTube as well, etc.
Yeah, you think you can rent on YouTube as well. It's not bad, actually, when you think about it, money-wise. So, moving on to cast this week. So, Clint Eastwood plays Gunny Highway. Obviously, he needs no introduction. He's a Hollywood legend. Cut his teeth on the Rawhide series, became a big star. Then he went on to be in the Dollars franchise as the Man with No Name, Where Eagles Dare, the huge beloved war movies, Kelly's Heroes as well, Dirty Harry. He's done so much. And then he went on to be, later in his career, obviously, he went on to be a director. He's won 2 Oscars and directed Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima. The man's just a powerhouse, and he's still going strong, even at 92. And when this movie was filmed, he was 56. So,
wow,
it's incredible, isn't it? The man's still going strong. Then you have Mario Van Peebles as Stitch Jones. He was the son of filmmaker Melvin Van Peebles, who gained acclaim for his 1971 film Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song, which is a blaxploitation film, but it was really well received, made a lot of money. And Mario had a small role in that, playing a young version of Sweet. And he also wears in the film a T-shirt with the character on from the movies. It's really cool.
Oh, does he? Oh, cool.
I think the vest that he wears is like a badass vest.
Under his leather jacket, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. But he's also... he was in Jaws: The Revenge. He played Malcolm X in Ali, the Will Smith movie from the mid-90s. And then more recently, he directed on the 2016 reboot of Roots and USS Indianapolis Men of Courage, starring Nicolas Cage.
Oh, that instant classic, yeah.
Yeah, it's not. Well, I mean, trying to find war movie connections, sometimes they can't all be classics, can they? And then we have Peter Koch as a Swede. We're not repeating Dick Richards from last week. I promised myself
don't stop.
I wasn't going to laugh at that. Yeah, so he plays Swede Johnson. He's the M60 gunner, and he played pro football at the time for Kansas City, Kansas City Chiefs, and he turned to acting after his career, and this is one of his early acting roles. Then we have Everett McGill as Major Powers. He's the main antagonist of the movie. He's best known for his role as Big Ed Hurley in Twin Peaks. I've never seen it. Not really my thing. And he was Stilgar in 1984's June, but he also appears in 1979's Yanks. And he also starred in a film called Field of Honor, which is a film about Korea in the same year as Heartbreak Ridge.
Oh, wow, didn't know that. He's also the baddie in Under Siege 2 with Steven Seagal.
Ah, right, okay. Nice.
Yeah, the train one.
Then we have Arkandeen Schneider as Sergeant Major Chuzu, and he is Clint's best friend army buddy. He played Henry in Yanks as alongside Everett McGill. But he also did like prolific TV work, like Magnum PI, MacGyver, Full House, Quantum Leap. So it's easy in that era, just being in everything. Then we have Moses Gunn as Staff Sergeant Webster. He's one of Major Powers' cronies in the movie. And he's really underused, I think, considering his prowess. So he's a Tony Award winner, critical acclaim on the stage for playing, roles in Shakespeare plays. He's in 1977's Roots as Katanga. He's in Carter's Army, which is also called the Black Brigade, in 1970, alongside Richard Pryor and Billy D. Williams. And then
he's wasted.
Also is wasted, and he's also in Little House on the Prairie. It's like, give him a bigger role.
As well, I think he was in lots of things.
So much, yeah. We'll have to do Carter's Army at some stage. It does look quite good, actually, from little bits I've seen. Then we have Richard Venture as Colonel Myers. He is no stranger to the war movie genre. He was in 1990s Navy SEALs as Admiral Koch.
Oh, yeah. It's a weird one, that one.
He was in the 1996 version of Courage Under Fire, and then he was in the 1979 version of Here to Eternity as Colonel Delbert. I didn't even know they did a remake of Here to Eternity, but apparently he was in it.
No, I didn't either. Okay.
Yeah, the cast is a bit of a long one this week, folks. And then we've got Bo Svenson as Roy Jennings. He's also an antagonist in the movie, but he is in it for maybe 2 scenes. He himself is actually an ex-Marine, but he also appeared in Inglourious Bastards in 1978 and then had a cameo role in Tarantino's version in 2009. And he also turns up in The Delta Force in 1986, and he was in Kill Bill Volume 2 as Reverend Harmony, which is like one for film fans there. Then we have Marsha Mason as Anne Highway, the ex-wife of Gunny. She's a 4-time Oscar nominee for Cinderella Liberty in 73, Goodbye Girl in 77, Chapter 2 in 79. And she also Emmy nominated for her role as Sherry Dempsey in Frasier in the 90s. So there's like some proper heavyweights surrounding
she has
the
one
cast.
good scene. She's good in all of her scenes, but she has one really good one.
They just don't give these people enough to do at times. I wanted more from her character because she had a lot to say in that scene. I just wish it would have maybe developed a bit more. And then we have Eileen Eckhart as Mary Jackson. She runs the Marine Bar. I don't think you don't even get the name of the bar, but it's sort of the ex-services or the Marines bar, like in the town. Yeah.
Her husband was a friend of
That's it.
Highway. Chuzu.
Yeah. And she was an Oscar winner in 1972 for Butterflies Are Free, and she got 7 Emmy Award nominations during the 70s to the 90s for work including The Mary Tyler Moore Show and Love and War. And then I'll quickly round up the platoon because we'll be here all week. So we've got Vincent Irizarry as Lance Corporal Frighetti. We've got Ramon Franco as Lance Corporal Aponte. We've got Tom Villard as Corporal Profile, Mike Gomez as Corporal Quinones, and Rodney Hill as Corporal Collins. So Rodney Hill's only got 3 other credits, and this is his biggest one. Irizarry won a Daytime Emmy Award in 2009 for All My Children, which is a drama sitcom. And Franco played Albert Ruiz in the Tour of Duty series in the late 80s, that Vietnam series, which is actually quite good. I think we'll do an episode on that maybe one day.
That's a good idea.
And Villard appears in the he appears in a couple of army recruitment genre films, kind of like this one. So he's in 1986's Weekend Warriors and then 1994's In the Army Now. And finally, Gomez plays the cop that the dude asks about leads in The Big Lebowski. So, when the guys go in, we've got 4 more detectives working on the case, working in shifts, and he laughs the dude off. That's Mike Gomez, which I thought was quite good. So that was the cast. I mean, it's quite a big one. But I just think you're here for Eastwood, aren't you? It's one of those things.
And he's got the best lines in the film, hasn't he? Let's face it.
Yeah. I mean,
the lady that owns the bar, you can tell that she's a professional. She's really good. As soon as you get the first, few bits of dialogue from her, you actually like her character. She knows what she's doing. It's a tiny role, but it's very likable.
Yeah, everyone's developed to an extent, but whether they get enough to do is debatable.
Yeah, I would have liked more Chuzu's character, to be honest.
I would have too. They work well as a double act. Maybe if they'd been together, sort of molding this platoon, it might have worked, and they would have had more of a mutual enemy in Powers. But maybe we could talk about that later.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Matt, do you want to round up the production for us?
So, as we said, it was directed by Clint Eastwood. His first military screen credit was Away All Boats, and I think he was a credit on that.
Uncredited naval man.
Yes, something like that. And then he was in the Lafayette Escadrille, which is a World War One movie about American volunteers in the French Air Force during World War One. Yeah, it looks like a really interesting film. I would like to watch that at some point. And then you mentioned a few of the others there: Kelly's Heroes, Regal's Dare. I'll throw in Firefox.
Oh yeah, of course.
And of course, he also directed American Sniper as well.
There's so much on that list; it's easy to miss it.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, look at the man's career.
Yeah.
This was his either 12th or 13th directorial credit, following up 85's Pale Rider, which is a great film. And he was also the film's producer, as we mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
But the film was written by someone we're familiar with on the show, even recently. It was written by James Carabatsos.
Yeah.
Wrote Hamburger Hill, which came out the following year. And then he worked on a number of other films. And his last war movie credit would be Lost Battalion in 2001.
Yeah, it's another great one we're going to get round to.
Cinematography came from Jack Green, who worked on a lot of blockbusters. And this is his first director of photography credit. He worked with Clint on a number of other movies. The technical advisor on the film is actually quite interesting. He was assigned by the Marine Corps, and he was a sergeant major, or a recon sergeant major, called James Dever. And after he got out of the Corps after 25 years, similar to Gunny in that he must have hit the mandatory retirement age, he went on to found his own military advising company for the film and such. And he worked on We Were Soldiers, Wind Talkers, The Last Samurai, Jarhead, Cloverfield, Valkyrie, Battlefield Los Angeles, American Sniper, and lots and lots of TV. Yeah. Really interesting career. And he also, while he was still in the Marine Corps, he did advise on another film, one called Death Before Dishonor, which looks, I haven't watched it all yet, but I watched a trailer and it looks like 1980s 13 Hours.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
That might be one to check out.
Bit of a TV movie feel to it, perhaps. But yeah. The film was filmed at Camp Taliga, which is part of Camp Pentland, the big Marine base in California, and on Viquez Island near Puerto Rico for the invasion scenes, I think.
Yeah.
It was shot in just 8 weeks, and it actually finished shooting early by about a week.
Wow.
So Cliff really raced through the production on it.
He wanted to spend that $6 million salary, didn't he?
Yeah.
When the check clears, I'm out of here.
Oh, how can anyone hear what he's saying? It's like when he's supposed to be shouting, they can't. Yeah.
Yeah. Cover me, goddammit. Sorry, Clint, what?
Budget was 15 million, and the box office brought in an impressive.
It was probably about 4 million, considering how much he was paid.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Sorry.
Box office brought in an impressive $121.7 million.
Huge.
It was number 2 behind Star Trek Voyage Home.
Oh my God! Wow.
Yeah, that's Clint's draw at the box office, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, true.
Still
got it. Like even in '86. I mean, he's not even like he's still box office in '86. He's still box office now.
He's still box office well into the '90s, isn't he? Really.
But even then, like in that era, you're going up against like your Stallones and your Schwarzeneggers. Like for him to make this type of movie and it to be a massive success still, it's just incredible. I think it's testament to the guy, isn't it? Really.
It's interesting, isn't it? So the film was made with the assistance of the Department of Defense and the Marine Corps. But once the production had been completed, the Marines officially withdrew their support for the film due to what they described as an excessive amount of profanity, which we object to. And according to Lieutenant Colonel John Shotwell, which is a great name for a Marine, Shotwell, perfect.
Shotwell, great,
was quoted in a November 86 article in The Hollywood Reporter as saying they also objected to the scene where Clint shoots a wounded Cuban in the back.
I mean, I can see that more than the swearing. There's
a lot of swearing in this. There's a lot of swearing and slurs in this film. But
so no one's sworn in any war like that the Marines have fought in ever. Like they're
no.
Like, come on.
I mean, the Marines aren't known to be saints, are they? You know, we're British, but we know that US Marines
people have
aren't
written like
saints.
articles and theses on like men and swearing in like the 40s and stuff, like how it entered the common sort of vernacular. Like there's even in Hamburger Hill, James Carabatsos writes a whole thing about one of the characters coming home and swearing and it not being
he does.
something he does. So it like
that's the fucking potatoes.
Yeah, exactly. So I just think it's an odd thing for them to object to.
It is. Well, I mean, the plot thickens because apparently the film was originally written as an army piece, and it was offered to the army, and the army looked at it, and I think they saw the script and they saw the number of times the word pump is used and said, no, we're not. We don't want to use this. And it was offered to the Marine Corps, and they adapted the script. And I think that shows in a number of places where some of the elements don't quite
have to be changed, like the whole
within.
Him fighting at Heartbreak Ridge wouldn't kind of work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, with the 23rd and stuff.
Chozo says off screen, like, he was in the army before he joined the Marines at Heartbreak Ridge. And it's like, you can tell that I read that was inserted in after.
Yeah. The film received a Academy Award nomination for Best Sound, which I kind of agree with. The sound design on the film is really good, actually.
Yeah, give it that.
Composer Lenny Niehaus won a BMI Film Music Award, and Mario Van Peebles was nominated and won a NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a motion picture.
He is really good.
He's a bit irritating for me, but yes.
See, I think he plays off Clint really well.
He does play off him really well, but there's parts of it where I rewatched it. I was like, he seems more irritating to me than normal. Maybe he just caught me on a bad day.
Is it because you're older? Damn, Kurt, Matthew Moss sitting in his chair, shaking his fist.
Oh my God, like.
You felt like Clint, didn't you? You could torture me, you could hurt me.
In Gran Torino, get off my lawn.
Just don't bore me. Moss coming out with an M1 garage. Get off my lawn.
And this week I have the retro review, and it comes from Roger Ebert, December 5th, 1986. And I think it's spot on. It reads, Clint Eastwood's Heartbreak Ridge uses an absolutely standard plot and makes it special with energy. It's colourful characters and it's almost poetic vulgarity. We've seen this story in 100 other movies, where the combat-hardened veteran facing retirement gets one last assignment to train a platoon of green kids and leads them into battle. But Eastwood, as the producer, director, and star, caresses the material as if he didn't know B-movies had gone out of style.
Yeah, perfect. Like, Ebert never misses, usually, for me, when we do these. Did you watch the clip of Siskel and Ebert going at it about the movie on their show at the movies from 86?
I have in the past, but I didn't before we recorded this.
Great.
I have in the past seen it. It is good.
So Ebert's loving it, but Siskel's like, I don't like it. I think Clint's past it. It was like, it was cliched. It was boring. And then they're really going at it. But I can see why he'd think that, because it is a cliched plot, and it is. But it gets a little bit of B-movie about it at times. I got to admit.
I mean, to jump off the part where Ebert talks about it's a plot we've seen 100 other times. I mean, let's face it. You've got John Wayne in Sands of Iwo. You've got Full Metal Jacket. You've got Jarhead, Starship Troopers, Devil's Brigade, the Dirty Dozen movies. March or Die last week. They're all films where
Stripes,
Platoon,
Private Benjamin, they're coming out at the same time.
The list goes on and on and on.
Yeah. It's a well-grained in trope, isn't it?
Yeah, you take green troops and you train them up, and then there's a they go up against the hard-ass sergeant, and then they come to respect him, and then they go into battle, and they realize all that riding of them was for a purpose, so we don't die in combat.
It feels like these movies are made when there's a need to get people in the military. So it's like Sands of Iwo Jima. It's like, is that post-war movie?
It's 45, I think.
45. Yeah. So it's like getting people in for the final push. Stripes and these sort of like peacetime ones. You can feel like, oh, the military's a viable career. It's not just about fighting wars. It's a viable career. Like, that's how I feel like.
Although I wouldn't say this is exactly the US Marine Corps' Top Gun.
No, it's not. It's weird, isn't it? Because
it's definitely
not condone it either. But I wonder if it had an effect on enlistment numbers. Yeah. because I read some comments on a YouTube thing when I was watching that at the movies, and there's a few people that were saying when I went to see the movie, there's a guy that went to see it apparently, and he lived near a base, and he was saying that it was full of Navy and Marine Corps guys watching it, and they were loving it.
Of course it was, yeah.
Yeah,
if there's a film about your service branch coming out, you go and watch it, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. Like how the Marines love Ungentlemanly Act, and they're all Marines, love Ungentlemanly Act, and how we've seen a lot of like ex-servicemen come out when we mention these films. Go, oh, that's great. I saw it with my mate and my squaddy mates and stuff. Always the way. But as always, we asked your one-word reviews, and we had another bumper haul this week. I only put the post up about 4 or 5 hours before we started the recording this episode, and I couldn't keep up. So I've just chosen some choice ones. So we had A.D. Bond said leader. Al Allen said gunny. This was a bit of an interesting one. We had Jason Fox from Channel 4's SAS Who Dares Wins pop up with a one-word review, which we were amazed to see. He said muttface, which is one of the Clint's lines. One of Clint's lines, yeah. But yeah, thanks, Jason. If you're listening, like, welcome to the show. I'll have to get you on. Ian Houston says AK-47, obviously iconic in this movie, isn't it? The way that Gunny fires live rounds at his own troops. Fantastic.
Yeah, some of those would have definitely hit them.
Exactly, in that scene where they're running and he's just giving it like the whole shaky burst. Yeah. Then we had Pete the Paint. He said gruff. Paul Can said hoorah. Benji Lee, who interesting enough was an executive producer on SAS Who Dares Wins there. He says Recon. And DV at the end, he says clusterfuck, which I thought was great.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I mean, everyone seemed to have great love for this movie. I think it's I mean, we're going to get into why we love it at the end, and perhaps some things we don't like, but it's the dialogue, it's the sharpness of Eastwood, it's the tough, gruff. He's playing to type, but he's doing it so bloody well. And Carabatsos' writing is just so sharp. It feels like a comedy at times.
Yeah. The way Clint delivers some of those lines is just pure joy, isn't it, for him? You can tell he's enjoying it. I wonder how many takes some of them took, because I think some of them are almost like raps. They just roll off the tongue.
Yeah, they do. They really do. Like the start of it, like I would talk about it in my favorite scene, but that start, if you maybe, I don't know, played into more of the comedy of it, you could switch those people out and it feels like an SNL sketch or something. Like it's meant like it's played for laughs almost. I think like it doesn't age either, because the lines are so sharp and it's Eastwood. It all kind of works. But anyway, I think that brings us on to the alley tally this week.
It's time for Alley Tally on Fighting on Film.
Multiple integrated laser engagement system. That's it. Alley Tally's over.
Okay, save scenes.
I'm only kidding, but like, where have you ever heard that phrase in a movie?
Where do you ever see miles be used in a film?
I know, yeah, exactly.
So if you don't know what miles is, it's almost like military laser tag, basically, where you fit a little system onto your weapon, and everyone wears the receiver
little
units,
bulb things on the webbing,
and there's a scene in the film where there's an ambush during training, and everyone's equipped with blank adapters and miles, and they actually explain what it is and how it works.
It's great,
and it's
fantastic.
It's really interesting. It's one of the more I think that sequence is one of my favorites. Actually, it's not my favorite, but it is a really good one.
I know what you mean, because I think the only time I've ever seen something like that in a movie, in a war movie, I mean, it's a sci-fi movie anyway, but it's in Starship Troopers, where they're doing the laser tag type training. In that
lethal laser tag.
Lethal laser tag. Yeah, exactly. But I don't think I've ever seen it before. But it's interesting because it's whole, how you make the immersion of doing a combat simulation and all that. It's like a really cool bit of kit. And I just wasn't expecting it to be in Heartbreak Ridge. Like it's a nice little inclusion.
Yeah, it'd be fun playing laser tag with blanks, wouldn't it?
Yeah, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't?
Really adds to the immersion.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess it's an easy way to make troops put their head down because they're worried about getting knocked out of the game, or the exercise.
Yeah.
So it's clever. I've always wondered why armies don't use airsoft. Because
there's something called simunition,
right.
which is kind of similar, which is coming into more use now. But yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, see, I mean, it's like, with her, you'd get a reaction, sort of same thing. But it's just really interesting to see it, and for it to get like the screen, the name drop that it does. I mean, did you find that? Did the company that make that pay for a product placement? It felt very product placement-y.
I don't know. I think it's part of the US Marine Corps' involvement in it, and
sure.
perhaps the James Dever, the advisor, said, well, we do this thing where we use this miles system, and it's really, we can incorporate it into this training sequence if you want. I don't know whether that was something Clint would have known about and gone, oh, I'd like to incorporate the miles system.
Imagine that, yeah. I've been reading Guns and Ammo. I'd love to get this miles in here if we can. But it's just good. Also, another thing that I really enjoyed was seeing Stitch wear the M1 helmet. It's a nice little callback to Korea.
Piss pot. Yeah,
piss pot. Great little inclusion. Yeah, the mocked up BMPs at the end that you get, they're quite cool.
Oh yeah, the Cuban, and their mocked up Dushka.
Yeah, that was cool.
It reminded me of the ones used in Red Dawn. You get those gunfights with all of 3 Cubans. It's not the most populated battlefield, is it?
No, that's my issue with it. Like, we might get into it a bit later, but like that is one of the main drawbacks of that sequence. I think there'd be more than 3 men.
You would think
protecting their hostages.
It was kind of cool to see Woodland BDU.
Yeah, that's nice.
And of course the M16A1s with 30 round mags.
Yeah.
We're used to seeing them in low budget Vietnam movies. It's
yeah,
wrong. They shouldn't have
era,
30 rounders.
No.
But in this context,
correct.
It's right. Yeah. And there's a mocked up 203 as well, M203 grenade launcher.
Yeah, that's nice. M60 used by Peter Koch. That's cool. He lays down some great fire with that. And it's that classic trope of giving the big muscly guy the
big cock energy.
Yeah, very good. We couldn't mention the alley tally this week. We couldn't not mention the AK-47, which is actually an AKM wielded by.
It always is. Yeah,
it's always an AKM, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
But obviously, I mean, it would have been an AKM that Eastwood's character encountered in the jungles of Nam and wherever else he fought, because it's Chinese supplied, Russian supplied.
Yeah, Type 56. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there is a Type 56 in the film. In fact, one of the Cubans has one.
Yeah, it might be. So there's a sequence where they're running in their PT gear, and Eastwood comes out of nowhere and he just fires like a
empties the whole mag, doesn't he?
Yeah, but he's giving it like a wobbly rifle. Rounds are spitting everywhere, and he says, "This is the AK-47 assault rifle, the preferred weapon of your enemy, and it makes a distinct sound when fired at you. So remember it."
Yeah, I like the callbacks to that throughout.
It's great.
There's another training exercise where the lieutenant joins them, and he says, "What the hell's that?" And they all quote Clint.
It. It's great.
That's the AK-47, the weapon of our enemy.
When they come under fire at the end, they all say it to each other. That is good. Like, the script is sharp. As we said it before, the script is the standout thing in this movie is the writing. And obviously Eastwood's performance. And then, and I did a little bit of looking into like the unit that Eastwood was in. So it was the 2nd Recon Battalion, 2nd Marine Division. And they didn't see action in Vietnam. So I was like, says he does 2 tours. So the 2nd Recon Battalion were in the Dominican Republic, like he said, in 65.
Yeah, he has that one, yeah.
Yeah, but then later in the film, he said he was in the 2nd Battalion, 7th Marine Div in Nam. And I looked it up, and they were heavily involved in 68 when they said, and Colonel Meyer said he served in the 1st Battalion of the 7th. So everything checks out. It's nice. But I thought it's a bit weirded me out first time I heard it, because I was like, hang on a minute. They said it's his old unit, and they would like us to assume he fought in Nam with this unit, but the unit didn't fight in Nam. And I was like, oh my, it doesn't make sense. So I had to go and work it out for myself.
probably did a bit more work there than the average cinema goer did in 1986, though, to be fair to you.
Yeah, just let it wash over you. Yeah. Because that's the thing about this film. If they didn't add that line in about the army at Heartbreak Ridge, you'd think it was predominantly a Marine battle.
Well, exactly. And there was only few, if any, Marines there.
Yeah.
It's the holdover from that original script, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
They were like, no, we're still going to call it Heartbreak Ridge.
Exactly. There's a nice sequence where stock footage is obviously being used for the sequences where everyone's mobilizing for Grenada. That's cool because the film stock changes and it is so obvious.
Yeah, I think they shot that. I think that was shot possibly with the help of the Marine Corps. They built an exercise for the film. Because
of the bit of the Huey dropping them in the water. That's great.
Yeah, it's really cool, isn't it? Like, I did wonder why they didn't put the flippers they had on their packs on before they jumped in.
Oh yeah, they just drop them, don't they?
They should. They should have put those on when they were on board the helicopter. Surely. Anyway, I don't know what the doctrine is for that.
Yeah, if you do know,
do let us know.
At us.
It's essential that we must know why the flippers were not placed on their feet before they jumped from the helicopter.
It's Matt's accuracy corner.
Don't we already get complaints about that?
The Doctrine Den with Matthew Moss.
Oh my God, it's an offshoot podcast. Another thing that I thought was interesting is the inclusion of some of the armored vehicles, some of which entered service after Grenada.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't even know.
Yeah, the labs I think came in 84. I don't know. Anyway, I'm not a Marine Corps amphibious and armored vehicle expert, but as you mentioned, the Cuban BTRs, I think, are they BTRs or the
BTRs or BMPs? You can never sure them mocking up like they look like the ones in Red Dawn. Like they're built up around current vehicles.
Yeah, the thing about that sequence is where they're stuck in that building is that cannon should be doing work on that building, and it blows a tiny portion.
We all know it. Like we all know watching it. I'm like, you're all dead, boys, and that's why Eastwood shouts them not to go in there because he knows. Yeah, like it's curtains. Which at least Eastwood's character is showing still that he's been in this sort of situation. He knows going into that building is, it's too tempting as an infantryman, but it doesn't make sense if you want to stay alive. So at least they do that. And they do show him getting absolutely hammered. I mean, obviously, if in real life, the building probably collapses on them, but it's not, I wasn't expecting that level of realism from the ending of this movie.
No. Having seen the earlier firefights, you're not going to get that level of stunt.
I'd say that,
or action, I don't think. But we'll talk about that in a moment.
It's competent, isn't it?
I think that rounds us up. Let's move on to favourite scenes.
Hello, Robbie here. Did you know you can support the podcast on Patreon? Join the supporting cast today and gain access to exclusive perks, such as discount codes, our monthly Patreon film votes, and the chance to get exclusive merchandise before anyone else. Search Fighting on Film on Patreon or find the link on our website. Thank you. Now back to the show.
I like the bit where the lady comes out of the shower.
Apparently that's meant to be Eastwood's mistress at the time. Apparently.
Who knows?
Who knows?
If you're listening, Clint, I don't know. I didn't say that. And it's not my favorite scene. It just really struck me as like, oh, gratuitous. Okay.
It's the 80s.
It is. It's very much the mid 80s, and there had to be some in there, didn't there? I suppose.
Yeah. It's the comedy element coming in again. It's that script. Isn't it?
It is. There are definite comedy beats that they're peppering throughout the whole thing. Yeah. And that one is a bit of a carry-on movie.
It is a bit, isn't
comedy
it? Yeah.
Beat, isn't it? So yeah, I think my favorite scene is.
Oh, so it's not, is it?
No, it's not.
What?
No, it just shook me, Rob. I wasn't surprising it. I wasn't expecting it. The gratuity of it just shocked me.
In a sea of like camo and guns, like when she comes out of the shower, you're like, hang on, what was that? Oh, too late. Towels on.
I think my favorite part of the film is actually the initial firefight where they there's a 3-man Cuban recon team that opens fire on them. and they all fan out and lay down fire, and then Clint Eastwood goes on a one-man flanking attack.
Yeah, it's cool. It's good.
And it's a vicious part of the movie because they're already retreating. And Clint just appears in a clearing that they're about to like retreat through and just empties a mag and kills all of them.
He's definitely he's definitely recalling some shit he did in Nam there.
Yeah.
Like definitely.
Full combat mode. Clint is just no prisoners taken, literally.
Does
to the point where the Marine Corps disagreed with the fact that no prisoners were taken.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He just shoots one of them on the ground.
He does give him a butt. And even then, I'm like, oh, hang on, Clint. Like, there was no need. like Jesus. Even if he doesn't even have like a line of dialogue to like say why. You know, maybe if you had said like, oh, and you know, if he said previously in the thing, you know, you never leave a soldier, because like in Nam, when we left a Viet Cong, like he went back and told his commander about where my regiment was and we got mortared or something. Like there could have been a reason, but they don't do it.
I suppose, yeah.
Don't even get me started on this. There's no context to why they're going to Grenada apart from rescuing the Nationals. Sorry to jump that in quick.
The background of the Grenada operation is not given.
Non-existent, and there's space. There's space for it too. Like,
there is, yeah.
That's even what annoys
you
me
get like
more.
a tiny bit of exposition when they're on the landing craft helicopter and they're about to board the Huey to go and infiltrate, and the lieutenant just says, Grenada is so many miles from Venezuela and we are going to rescue American nationals, which, yes, that was, I think, one of the things behind it, but it was also a regime change operation, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's so much more to that, and it's a shame because, you know, maybe when they get sort of jumping off again, I don't mean to spoil your favorite scene bit, but there's a section where they get mobilized and it's a drill. But maybe, you know, you could have shoehorned in a line from the general being like, "Oh, good, I'm glad you guys were ready because there's rumors that we might be going into Grenada soon. What's going on there?" You know, there's like
it's
just
almost
a line
like
of
surprise
exposition.
Grenada. You know?
Yeah, it just happens. And I mean, I've wrote in my notes for final thoughts, I think it's meant to be thrust upon the viewer because it's thrust upon the men. They're not expecting.
Yeah, I was thinking
they're
that
peacetime
myself.
soldiers. They're not expecting it. I guess that's probably why. But then, as a viewer, I've seen it a couple of times now. I'm like, tiny bit of context would have been nice. Considering
I agree.
But anyway, back to your favorite bit. Like, that sequence is strong. Like it's very Nam-y, isn't it? It's very Vietnam War.
It is, yeah, and it's proving the point that he is combat veteran, very experienced, is ruthless.
It shows. So that the whole movie's building him up to be this larger than life soldier who's done it all, and then to finally see him do it, it's just good. It's good an arc.
It's the payoff, isn't it? Yeah, it's the beginning of the payoff for the rest of the movie. And as we said earlier, I really like the bit where they introduce Miles, the Miles system, and that whole ambush sequence. And it's where the platoon begins to coalesce into a more cohesive unit.
Yeah, that's the stronger part of those action sequences. I'm sure we'll talk about it more at the end.
What was yours?
My fave scene is the opening fight because it sets up Gunny Highway to everything that he's going to be in this movie, and it's the dialogue. So it starts off with this sharp as fuck dialogue. The minute the movie starts, it's off on it. It starts in black and white after this Korean War stock footage montage, which if you've watched any of my videos on Korea, it's the same footage because there's not that much out there.
Like men the US National Archive.
Yeah, it's great footage. Like the guy's hammering that M2 carbine. If you've seen that,
he is.
You know exactly what footage I'm talking about. But it starts in black and white and it fades into color, and that's confusing a little bit.
It is. If they faded it into color immediately,
it might make sense.
Because you're like, why are we? It's black and white. It's a police station. They see someone go back into the cells, and you're thinking,
I saw it as symbolically bringing an old soldier up to the modern day.
Okay, that works.
Do you think of it as bleeding color in? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I mean, from the dialogue, you immediately know that you're meeting this character at crossroads.
Oh, yeah, of course. So he's talking he's in the jail cell. You're not sure why. he's talking to the inmates, and this huge dude in the script he's called Jail Binger, and he says, yeah, huge dude. He says, I don't like soldier boys. And Highway looks up at him, and he's got a half-chewed cigar in his mouth. Has a Highway, and he says, say what? Jail Binger replies, if you want to pop that puppy's can, you don't have to grease him so hard, jarhead. So I'm like, Jesus, like Clint's just telling old war stories, mate. Like, I don't think Clint's going to be doing what you think he's going to be doing. And then Clint says, well, it sounds like you're a man of experience. It's the immediate clap back. It's like the comedy, the sharpness coming in there. And then Jail Binger's like, what's the hell that's supposed to mean? Grunge shit. And then Highway says the line, and it immortalizes his character, how he's going to be throughout the movie, as this grizzled, no nonsense, no battle too tough type soldier. And he says, it means, be advised, I'm mean, nasty, and tired. I eat concertina wire and piss napalm, and I can put a round in a flea's ass at 200 meters. So why don't you go and hump someone else's leg, muttface, before I push yours in? And a fight ensues. And it's great. And as the fight ensues...
It's a really good way of introducing the character.
Yeah.
And I like the court scene that follows that too.
It's fabulous, isn't it?
Where, he's been charged with drunken and disorderly, gets $100 fine. And the judge says, reads out the accusations, and he's pissed on a police car, and he says, well, I thought it was the thing to do.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? It's great. Like, and that's the great thing about, obviously Eastwood's the star, he's going to get all the juicy lines, but he delivers them so well. And he's done it his whole career. He's quipped, and it's the action movie type thing, but he's doing it really well. And there's other great lines as well. Like, so for me, it wasn't necessarily favorite scenes, but just the dialogue was on point. And there's a bit where he's fighting that guy in the jail cell, and he says, why don't you just sit there and bleed a while before you taste some real pain? It's like, you imagine Schwarzenegger coming out with that in Commando.
Yeah.
And there's another great one where he's got all his recruits out in front of the huts, and he's like, the Marines are looking for a few good men. Unfortunately, you ain't it. It's just great. Like, it's fabulous.
There's loads of zingers. There's
so
loads.
many zingers. It's really great. That's it for me. Like, I'll talk about what I think of the rest of it at the end, but it's James Carabatsos' script. It's great. You could remake this now and put any actor in that role, and they'd still get laughs. It's so strong.
They'd have to carry it though, but yeah, I agree.
And it carries on into Hamburger Hill, like we were saying. And you go back and look at that movie and our review from a couple of weeks ago. We mentioned the dialogue in that. It's some of the standout parts of that script. It's clearly a man who has been in combat. He must have known soldiers like this, being an ex-air cavalryman. So it must have been all from experience, and it really comes through.
Yeah. I think there were a couple of people that helped with some of the dialogue on the film, made some uncredited. A couple of uncredited writers that added as well. But I definitely think Carabatsos' skill with that kind of dialogue really comes through in this film.
Yeah,
it's almost gratuitous at one point. He lays it on with a trowel in some of those scenes, and he's chewing the scenes, isn't he? He is chewing
the scenery, but in a good way. Yeah,
it is. It's in the best possible way. And I think it's also worth mentioning that scene with his ex-wife as well, where they're in the bar after she's bailed him out for being drunk and disorderly again. It's a theme.
Because they have an argument, don't they?
They do.
And then, there's the aftermath of the argument is in the bar.
And she talks about the trauma that she experienced waiting for him to come home from Vietnam.
Yeah.
Watching the news, hoping to see him, but also hoping not to see him. And she hasn't processed any of that, I don't think.
No, I wish we'd had a little bit more of them. Like, we don't necessarily need some of the sequences with the recruits, because they're not. We'll get into it. But, like, just maybe have a few more scenes of them trying to reconcile, maybe learn a little bit more about why they split up, because you only learn about that near the end. And considering it's Eastwood, who's Oscar-nominated actor, and it's, it's Marsha Mason, who is also, 4-time Oscar nominee. They're powerhouse actors. They can do this. They feel like an estranged couple.
And the only reason why we like that sequence and it works is because of their skill, I think.
Yeah.
There isn't a lot of meat for them to expand on.
But there's enough. How her speech conjures up you can imagine her turning on the
she's
TV,
great in that
watching
scene.
the reports.
Yeah, no, she's really great.
And I'm sure that spoke to a lot of women of that age who were with people like that. It's probably spoke to a generation of people as well.
Mm.
I really think it's strong. It's just, Siskel actually said that in the review that at the movies section, he was saying how he felt the same way. That he just wished he'd had a little bit more because they were good together as actors on screen. But I think that maybe brings us on to final thoughts.
Hello, I'm Al Murray, and you're listening to Fighting on Film, the world's #1 war film podcast.
Who wants to go first?
I found some of the sequences of the training a bit overdone.
Mm-hmm.
To start off with negatives, I thought some of the platoon and the way that they were characterized were a little bit cringeworthy.
I can go for that a little bit.
Yeah, it's, the bits where they start singing and like, I don't know, it's just a bit too hammy.
I just took that as they're 80s kids. That's how they're expressing themselves.
Yeah,
I just took it as that's periods.
Did Marines? I don't know. True. I agree. Jones's character is just ever so slightly too over the top for me.
I liked him. I thought he was great.
No, he's likable and he works well with Clint. But they're cramming it. There's a sequence where they do like a close-up of him moonwalking. It's like they cram Michael Jackson and Prince into one character.
Yeah, we don't. I don't think we need as much of him being a rock star. Because
apparently he wrote those little rhymes and
they're great.
The Bionic Marine and stuff, and the songs and the raps. So that's cool. I mean,
it's cool, but we don't. They establish him at the start as this budding wannabe rock star who is also a Marine. He's just doing that in his R&R, I assume.
Yeah.
And then that's enough. We don't need to see him cause fights at bars and stuff. Like it's just didn't need to happen. Apart from that one section where Highway is introduced to Ray, like that works because it's the Marines who instigate that confrontation.
Yeah.
But that's all you need. You don't need any more. They do it again at the end. And I'm like, but you don't need that. Like, you've already established who he is. You're just doing it again. Needlessly, I think. I think you are right. But it's just, I do think his character works really well. Like it's a generational thing. I quite like the two approaches to being
it's a clash of culture, isn't it?
As well.
I think Clint calls him a hippie on the bus, doesn't he? And he says, there's not been hippies around here for a century, man.
Great line. Fucking great. Another great line. Yeah.
I think the thing is, for me, the way that Recon platoon are characterized really chimes more with...
Matt's talking in 70s slang now. Christ. These movies ain't full of cool cats no more.
Oh, yeah. Can you imagine if I attempted to do that? No.
Matt Jive Moss. Please continue.
So what I was trying to say was they feel more like they're recruits rather than Marines that have been in long enough to be actual Marines that are in a recon platoon.
That is a sticking point because it's like they've never fired rifles. It's like they've never done PT.
Yeah, so in those training sequences, I know that their platoon sergeant was riding easy because he was a short timer, going to retire soon. But still, I don't think they would have been as lax as that. I don't think it's possible within the hierarchy.
Powers is using him as like target practice for his exercises, and he's picking on them and trying to use them as like, my first platoon are the best. Like, but it doesn't make sense.
Thing. Why would a major focus in so hard on one platoon?
Yeah, I know.
That's weird to me too.
It's a bit weird. It's a bit of a plot hole, isn't it? I'm like, so that we meant to think the US second Marine Division consists of like 30 men or something. It's like, that's a little thing I don't like, because maybe it could have shown them as being rusty, because I think that's maybe what it was trying to do.
Yeah,
but, maybe it just leans into it too much. I think you're right. They start to feel like raw recruits.
They do. And getting Swede to beat the sergeant up and that kind of thing. It just
that could have been developed on more. Like,
yeah, it's parts of it didn't ring true to me as true as they could have done. All in all, it's an interesting movie that depicts Grenada, which is a conflict which is never seen on screen before or after.
No. The first time I ever heard of Grenada actually was on an SNL sketch about like puppetry. Have you seen that sketch?
No, I haven't.
It's Bill Hader, and he's got this like puppet who's dressed in like a woodland camo jacket, and they're doing like a puppetry comedy class, and then he comes in and he's like, "I was in Grenada," but it's all like through a puppet, and he's doing almost like Eastwood. Like it's really funny, and that's the first time I ever heard of Grenada, and I was like, "What the hell?" Like there were like troops there. What the fuck? So like for this movie to be one of the only on-screen depictions of that war is commendable, I guess, but they just don't do enough to set it up.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I did like that they weaved in some of the events that apparently happened during the war, like the Bulldozer Incident.
Yeah, and the cooling the plane up.
Yeah, so the Bulldozer Incident and the calling through and that sort of thing. So the Bulldozer Incident was supposed to be Army Rangers.
Okay.
At an airstrip that they captured, and that sequence is good, but it's lacking because I don't know. It just feels like it's a made for TV movie.
Yeah, it does go.
Those battle sequences lack nuance. So within that genre of recruit movies that train men, hard-ass sergeant, film ends with them going into battle for the first time.
Yeah.
The payoff has to be good.
Yeah.
And normally films, they get that right. There's some exceptions, obviously. But
yeah, I'm not expecting like Full Metal Jacket levels of like, filmmaking in the end there, but
yeah,
I wanted more,
Yeah, a little bit more. It just felt
like they were shooting 3 men at any one given time.
Well, they were, yeah. It lacks nuance. And it's not a very sophisticated sequence that's been choreographed. No. It doesn't feel like it's just, there's a foxhole with 3 guys in it. Fire at them. They're retreating now. Yeah. There's another foxhole and sandbags with some.
It feels it's like it's a corridor for them to go down, like a shooting gallery almost. Yeah. It almost
I know that the fighting in Grenada wasn't that complex.
No,
because I don't think the Cubans there were top notch, and I don't think the Grenadian army.
They hammered
such as it was.
I was looking at some footage. They hammered the stronghold near the airport with like artillery and stuff at the end. So
yeah,
they softened them up.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, indeed. But yeah, if a little bit more money and possibly time had been put into those, I think it would have had a better payoff for the film in terms of action. Because it's a very physical film. There's lots of fights. There's lots of confrontation.
Yeah.
So you would expect like a little bit more, but it does very much feel like a made-for-TV movie. It feels almost a bit like the TV Dirty Dozen movies.
A little bit, but even then, like the second one was all right, and there was explosions and stuff going on. Like
TV movie can really work. I mean, look at Lost Battalion. That was made for TV. That was an HBO.
That's great,
picture, wasn't it?
I know what you mean, though. It's not brilliant. It's competent. I think
there's one nice bit of cinematography where there's a following shot of them moving through the woods.
That's overhead. Decent, yeah.
Yeah, and you can see them through the canopy, and it looks kind of cool. But that's kind of it with them trying some different stuff.
Yeah,
cinematically within that sequence. Yeah. It's just straightforward, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
it's a 2-hour plus movie.
I wasn't expecting it to be fantastic, but I was just expecting maybe just a tiny bit more. I mean, I think it redeems itself a little bit where they're fighting, where they have to fight off those BMPs in that sort of like ruined building. I think that's quite good. Like it.
Well, it's no 9 men though, is it?
It's no 9 men, but it didn't have to be. And seeing the Huey come in and shoot the piece was cool. And that's I think it was animated actually. The rockets coming off that Huey.
Oh right. Okay.
If I'm right, I think it looked animated anyway. I might have to go back and check, but it's decent enough. I mean, my main gripe actually is one of my things we haven't talked about. It really rubbed me up the wrong way. Is the character of Powers and Webster being like enemies of Highway, it really annoys me because you've got this young guy who's come over from Supply and he's got it in for Gunny, who is a Medal of Honor winner.
Yeah.
You know, probably there's more like soldier in Gunny's left boot than the entirety of Powers' character. And it just doesn't ring true. Like, I don't buy that this young major would be in for Gunny so much when he himself could learn so much from him. And I just felt like maybe, and I know it's trying to play off, it needs this young cocksure guy who wants to modernize the Marines, or you're like a relic sort of thing to Highway. It could work, but I maybe felt like it would have worked better if he'd been an older adversary who maybe resents Gunny for having this amazing career, where his career has always just been, something that he didn't get himself, so he could maybe have been in for him there. I don't think they need to fight each other because that doesn't resolve anything. So they have a fight and Gunny bests him in this like pit thing, and they all have a fight. And then after that, the Major is still sore to Gunny. So I thought after that sequence, the Major's going to respect him now. He's going to understand, he's going to respect that he's trained his troops up. But you never get. It feels like you should get the Major coming in at the end being like, I'm sorry for all the shit I gave you, but fuck me, you can train men up. Fucking look at these lads, they've done so well. Like, I thought you were going to get that. But even then you don't get it. You get the Colonel coming in saying, you're in Supply, stick to it. And I'm like, so no one learns anything then. It just doesn't make any sense. And why would Webster, who is an older sergeant, older person, same age as Chuzu, I guess, why would he be anti-Gunny? It's just so odd. It doesn't make any sense to me I was like, you're not going to treat a Medal of Honor winner like that. I think that's why
you mean.
Stuck in my craw a bit.
Yeah, it's a bit unusual, isn't it? It doesn't work as well as it could have done. And it's a bit of a waste of those two actors, I would say, because both of them are capable of more.
Or maybe even if it was like a younger gunnery sergeant that he was going up against, maybe like, the old Sweat and the new breed, like maybe that could have worked.
Yeah, that would have worked.
That maybe you would have had more rivalry between the two units. It's like it's just missing, is lacking something there. That for me the adversary wasn't enough, because Eastwood's this huge character in it. He's shown throughout the movie that any fight he can win. He beats Svenson. He beats Swede, who, when you look at Swede, you're like, Jesus, he's going to pummel bloody Clint Eastwood's face in. But no, Clint Eastwood, dispatches him in about 5 seconds. I know that Powers is no match for this guy, and I know that's probably what the movie wants you to think. But for me, I was like, I just wanted more like Eastwood to have to get over more, perhaps. That's my only real gripe. Apart from that, I mean, I think the movie's fantastic. It's worth watching for the dialogue alone. There's parts of it. I think there's parts of it that give makes Stripes look like a bad comedy. Like I think there's funnier lines in this movie than there is in Stripes at times.
There's definitely some good comedy beats throughout, and
really strong.
The dialogue in it is really good. Yeah, I tend to agree. It's worth watching, definitely.
And if you're a Clint fan as well, it's one of his best.
Oh yeah,
surely.
It's a must watch for Clint fan, because it's an interesting period that it's trying to portray, isn't it? It's post Vietnam, pre Gulf War. It's the 80s, and it's a conflict, Grenada, that has been overshadowed and forgotten. And it's interesting that they decided to set a film during that and use that short operation as a climax for the film.
Agreed. Yeah.
One thing I would say is I enjoyed the performances from the leads, and while I thought some of the characterizations of the platoon members was a little bit over the top, I thought Chuzu's character, his ex-wife, and even the Major to a degree, they're good performances. We just wish we'd had a little bit more from all of them.
Yeah, I'm not trying to put down like Powers' performance when I say I don't like his character. Like I think he's doing really well. He's an absolute bastard, like to Gunny.
Yeah,
that's what he has to do.
He's making you hate that character.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That's a sign of a good actor. He's making you hate that character. But you wish he'd had more of a reason.
Yeah, exactly. I felt like his motivation wasn't strong enough to merit how he was treating Gunny. And no one in the movie turns around and goes, "Hey, hang on, like that guy's got a Medal of Honor. Like, cut some slack."
Yeah,
sort of thing. That's maybe a line like that would have worked. Or perhaps Powers didn't know. Maybe instead of Stitch learning that he's got a Medal of Honor, where he would have already seen the Medal of Honor ribbon on him when they met him in the barracks first off. Instead of him learning that, maybe Powers could have learned that, but Powers would already know that going in. So it still doesn't make any sense.
What I felt was a bit weird was, they meet on the bus, don't they? He'll have seen the ribbon. That's
what I mean. Yeah, exactly. He'd have seen it.
He'll have seen the ribbon there. And would a Marine really steal from another Marine? That strikes me as like the worst thing you can do, especially a sergeant that seems to be going to the place that you want to go. Yeah. He takes his bus ticket. He knows he's going to. It's Camp Platoon. It's supposed to be, isn't it? They talk about it.
I saw that as just like road movie type stuff.
It is, but no, think about it. He knows that sergeant is going to the same base that he's going back to.
Yeah.
Would you steal from someone that you know you're going to be on the same base with?
Yeah, I know. It's just set up the shock, isn't it? It's the shock of him finding out that Gunny's going to be his CO. Like that's the NCO. That's the shock. Like it works.
I guess it just plays against the cocksure nature of the character, doesn't it?
You're setting him up, aren't you? But I think, apart from that, I think that's Heartbreak Ridge, guys. So thanks for listening again. Yeah, thanks for listening. Next week, we are talking to Stephen Darlow about his work on the new Lancaster documentary that's been doing the rounds, and it looks fab. We're going to watch it before we talk to Stephen, and he was a co-producer and did some of the military advising work. I think he organised some of the interviews with the veterans, made sure it looked all fit and was accurate. So we're really looking forward to talking to him.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. Can't wait.
Going to be great. Look out for that next week. And as always, follow us on the socials. You can find the whole back catalogue of the podcast on fightingonfilm.com. Maybe you'll have a FOF binge. If you do, let us know on Twitter. And we'll catch you next week, guys. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening, guys. Catch you again.
Bye.